Good morning, everyone. Today we are going to start our lecture 15 that is related to the working capital management. In this lecture, we are going to define what is working capital, what are the different components of working capital, what are the factors that affect the working capital. Because in order to manage any business, we have to focus on working capital. Without working capital, we cannot assume any business in existence. मीन्स अगर आप किसी बिजनेस को रन करना चाहते हैं तो यू हैव टू कंसंट्रेट ऑन वर्किंग कैपिटल मैनेजमेंट. आपके करंट एसेट करंट लायबिलिटी बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट रोल प्ले करते हैं. if you're not able to manage that, you're not able to continue your business for the long run. So because it matters a lot, it helps in decision making, and it is considered as the vital decision for any business concern. So for that, we are going to discuss what is the meaning of working capital and other major components related to that. First thing is, what does it mean? Actually, in simple sense, if we are going to define it, working capital is the amount required to carry out day-to-day operations. In accounting terms, it can be interpreted as. So in simple sense, working capital means the amount required which is required to carry out day-to-day operations. Means आपके business के लिए जो आपके day-to-day expenses clear out करने के लिए आपको जो money चाहिए, that is considered as working capital. Here we can take the example of any business. Just like if you are running a hotel and the expenses related to the material which you are going to prepare on daily basis, that is related to the dishes, that is your working capital expenses. And the day-to-day maintenance of the hotel, that is related to your working capital expenses. And the infra which you are already having in the form of building, so that is your fixed asset. These are your fixed assets. But in order to run the hotel, you have to focus on you have whether you are able to bear the day-to-day expenses. आप अपने day-to-day expenses कैरी कर पा रहे हैं, आपके पास उतना अमाउंट लिक्विडिटी के फॉर्म में है जो आपको एक्सपेंसेस डे टू डे बेस पे बेयर करने पड़ते हैं. दैट मच अमाउंट यू हैव इनफ इन योर हैंड्स, सो दैट इज रिगार्डेड एज वर्किंग कैपिटल. Your hotel is very good in infra. You are able to manage all the accessories there, all the facilities there. But if you are not able to maintain, if you are not able to manage your day-to-day expenses, in that case your infra is zero for the business, for the customers. क्योंकि आप अपने day-to-day expenses नहीं चला पा रहे हैं, you're not able to provide good services to the customers. So there is no need, there is no importance of anything against it. क्योंकि कस्टमर आपके पास जो आएगा वो आपके सर्विसेज पे फोकस करेगा, और सर्विसेज आपकी कैसी होंगी वो आपके डे टू डे ऑपरेशंस के कंट्रोलिंग पे फोकस करेगी. दैट इज टोटली रिलेटेड टू द वर्किंग कैपिटल मैनेजमेंट. सो इन दिस सेंस द इम्पोर्टेंस ऑफ वर्किंग कैपिटल इज वेरी हाई. नेक्स्ट इज हाउ वी आर गोइंग टू कैलकुलेट इट इन अकाउंटिंग टर्म्स. सो वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट working capital in accounting terms. It can be defined as working capital equal to current asset minus current liabilities. Now what does it mean? Working capital means whatever you are having in your hand in the form of current asset, you have to deduct that from current liabilities, and the difference is working capital. आपके पास जो भी current liabilities हैं वो आपके current asset में से जो deduct करने के बाद आपके पास जो balance बचता है, that is your working capital. Now what are current assets? Current asset क्या है? Current asset are those assets which can be converted into cash within a short duration. Current asset वो assets हैं जो कि easily convertible into cash है. आप उन्हें easily convert कर सकते हैं cash में. और generally इसका time period less than 1 year रखा गया है, and it includes just like inventory, debtors, cash and bank balances, prepaid expenses, loans and advances, marketable securities, marketable investment, etc. All these are considered in current asset. And in the same sense, current liabilities are also there. Current liabilities are those which fall due for payment. जैसे आप कैश को करंट एसेट को कन्वर्ट कर सकते हैं कैश में इन शॉर्ट स्पेन ऑफ टाइम, यहाँ पे आपको पेमेंट करना होता है शॉर्ट स्पेन ऑफ टाइम में. So that is generally less than 1 year. In the same sense as we are having in the current asset कि आपको 1 साल से कम में आप उसे convert कर सकते हो कैश में. In the same sense you are having an option, you are having an obligation that you have to pay your current liabilities less than 1 year time period. So it includes creditors. In this, it is included creditors, outstanding expenses, tax provisions, proposed and unclaimed dividend. All are having a short-term liability. That's why they are created and they are considered in current liability. So that is all about the basic of working capital. Now let's move on to the next slide. That is components of working capital. Component means what does it comprise? What does it comprises of? What does it constitute of? So working capital is made up of four components. Four major components of working capital are there. First one is cash and cash equivalent, means cash and just like cash, all the assets are considered in this. And then second, creditors, accounts payable. Creditors means the liability which you have to bear in short span of time, and accounts payable. Next is inventory or stock in hand, means the inventory which you are having in your hand in order to convert it into a finished form. And next one is debtors or account receivables, because you are going to sell out the goods in the form of cash or in the form of credit. So if you are selling it out in the form of credit, there are some debtors, and if you are selling it in the cash, you are having the cash in the form of asset. So these are the major components, and the cycle goes on, working capital cycle just like goes on, that you are having inventory, and after preparing the goods or after converting the inventory into usable form, you're going to sell it out to the creditors. Creditors pay the cash, and cash turns to creditors, and the debtors pay the cash, and since cash turn to creditors, and you are again purchasing the goods, purchasing the inventory, and the cycle going on. Next is concept of working capital. Actually, the concept of working capital is very simple, and it can be defined on the basis of time and on the basis of concept. If you're going to define it on the basis of time, so you have to divide the working capital into two. First one is permanent or fixed working capital. Second one is temporary or variable working capital. Now, what is that? Actually, working capital, as we already discussed, that working capital is the capital required for a short span of time in order to carry out your day-to-day expenses. But how can it be permanent in nature? Here I want to plot one example. For example, आप कभी स्वीट्स की शॉप में गए हैं, तो स्वीट्स की शॉप में जब आप जाते हैं तो आप देखते हैं कि स्टॉक पूरा भरा हुआ होता है शॉप में, और वो आपको हमेशा मिलेगा. ऐसा नहीं है कि वो सेल नहीं होता प्रोडक्ट, द सेल इज गोइंग ऑन, बट यू हैव टू मेंटेन दैट मच अमाउंट इंटैक्ट. वो स्टॉक आपको रखना ही रखना है, वो आपको इंटैक्ट रखना है. आप एम्प्टी शॉप नहीं रखेंगे, तो वो परमानेंट नेचर का इन्वेस्टमेंट है आपका. है वो टेम्परेरी, वो है वो वर्किंग कैपिटल, लेकिन वो परमानेंट नेचर का है, दैट यू आर नॉट एबल टू रिमूव इट, यू आर नॉट एबल टू अवॉइड इट. नेक्स्ट इज टेम्परेरी और वेरिएबल. टेम्परेरी और वेरिएबल के सेंस में हो सकता है दैट इज टेम्परेरी इन नेचर, that you are making arrangement for the short span of time according to the requirement. Here we can take the example of festive season. For example, if we are having a clarity of mindset that some festive season is coming, तो we have to make arrangement according to that. शॉपकीपर उसके हिसाब से अरेंजमेंट्स करते हैं. अगर आप देखते हैं दिवाली में अगर आपको डिमांड पूरी करनी है लोगों की, तो आप टेम्परेरी अरेंजमेंट्स करते हैं उसके लिए कि आप उतने टाइम में ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा चीज़ें उसके हिसाब से फेस्टिव सीजन के हिसाब से अरेंज करते हैं. अगर आप उसे नहीं बना पाएंगे तो आप उसे ट्रेडिंग करते हैं उस प्रोडक्ट की, अपने कस्टमर्स की नीड को उसके अकॉर्डिंग आप सेटिस्फाई करने की कोशिश करते हो, बल्क में चीज़ें रखते हो उस फेस्टिव सीजन के अरेंजमेंट्स के अकॉर्डिंग. सो दैट इज योर टेम्परेरी और वेरिएबल, दैट टोटली डिपेंड्स अपॉन द रिक्वायरमेंट फॉर अ शॉर्ट स्पेन ऑफ टाइम. ये आपका टेम्परेरी और वेरिएबल में आता है. दैट्स वेरी अकॉर्डिंग टू द टाइम पीरियड और अकॉर्डिंग टू द ओकेजन. नेक्स्ट इज ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ कंसेप्ट. कंसेप्ट के बिहाफ पे आप कैसे डिवाइड कर सकते हो? एक्चुअली कंसेप्ट मीन्स यू आर डिवाइडिंग इट ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ ग्रॉस एंड नेट. इन ग्रॉस वर्किंग कैपिटल यू आर कंसिडरिंग द इन्वेस्टमेंट इन द फॉर्म ऑफ एसेट्स ओनली. आपने जितना एसेट लिया है वो सब आपका, आपके पास जितना भी एसेट है वो आपका ग्रॉस वर्किंग कैपिटल में आ गया है. और आपका जो डिफरेंस है एसेट और लायबिलिटीज का डिफरेंस, जैसे आप फॉर्मूले के फॉर्म में लिखते हो करंट एसेट माइनस वर्किंग कैपिटल इक्वल टू करंट एसेट माइनस करंट लायबिलिटी, वो आपका नेट वर्किंग कैपिटल में आता है. So in this sense, you can understand the concept of working capital. That working capital can be divided on the basis of time and concept, and according to time it can be primary or temporary, and according to concept it can be gross or net. So we are going to move on further on next slide. That is related to the briefing of concept of working capital. As I already told you, on the basis of concept, gross working capital, it refers to the fund investment in current asset. Means it defines how much investment a firm is having in the form of current asset, just like stock, debtors, credit and debtors, cashing in and all that. And next is net working capital. It refers to the difference. It refers to the difference of what? Difference of current asset and current liability. That's why it is treated as net working capital. And next one is positive working capital. Now, what does it mean? Positive working capital. Actually, it indicates the company ability to pay its short-term liability. Means you are able, you are solvent for paying the short-term liabilities. You're able to have, you're having capability to manage your obligations for the short duration of time. That is a positive working capital. And next one is negative working capital. Now, what is that negative working capital? Actually, it shows inability to meet out short-term liabilities, because how you are getting the negative working capital means current asset minus current liabilities. So when the result is negative, it means your current asset is less as compared to your current liability, and it shows your inability to meet short-term liabilities. Means you are not able to bear your expenses. Your current assets are less, that's why you are not able to bear your short-term liabilities. So that is regarded as net working capital. So that is the basic concept of working capital. And on the basis of time, if we're going to define it on the basis of time, permanent working capital, as I already told, that it refers to the minimum level of investment. Means minimum level of investment means that much amount of investment you have to remain intact round the year. You have to invest that much amount on your business round the year in the current asset that is required for day-to-day activities. Means you have to spend that much amount for your day-to-day activities. You are not able to reduce the amount regarding that. वो परमानेंट वर्किंग कैपिटल है आपका कि इतना मिनिमम तो आपको इन्वेस्ट करना ही करना है अपने एसेट्स पे if you want to remain in business, if you want to continue your business on daily basis, so you have to do it. Next is temporary working capital. Now, what is temporary working capital? It refers to those requirements that arises due to fluctuations in sale volume. कि ये वो टेम्परेरी रिक्वायरमेंट है जो किसी रीजन की वजह से राइज हुआ है, फ्लक्चुएट होने की वजह से सेल्स वॉल्यूम। और वो टेम्परेरी वर्किंग रिक्वायरमेंट आपका किसी फेस्टिव सीजन की वजह से हो सकता है, किसी अचानक से कोई प्रॉब्लम आ गई है उसकी वजह से हो सकता है, जस्ट लाइक कोविड इन द इनिशियल स्टेजेस व्हेन पीपल आर नॉट रेडी टू एक्सेप्ट द सिचुएशन, तो उस टाइम पे लोगों को बहुत मुश्किल हुई थी मैनेज करने में अपने बिजनेस को। तो वो सारी चीजें जो आपको टेम्परेरी लेवल पे फ्लक्चुएट कर देती हैं, मीन्स आप यू आर नॉट रेडी फॉर मेकिंग प्रिपरेशन राउंड द ईयर, आपको टेम्परेरी नेचर के अरेंजमेंट्स करने होते हैं, तो वो आपका टेम्परेरी वर्किंग कैपिटल होता है। मीन्स यू आर रिक्वायरिंग दैट मच अमाउंट फॉर अ शॉर्ट पीरियड ऑफ टाइम, आपको शॉर्ट स्पेन ऑफ टाइम के लिए वो चाहिए, so it refers to those requirements, that is temporary working capital. Now the next is diagram of management of working capital, how you are going to manage the working capital. Actually, in this diagram we try to depict the permanent and temporary working capital as I already define it in this diagram. The amount of working capital on x-axis you are taking the time, and on y-axis the amount of working capital, means you are trying to find out the definition, or you are trying to find out the relation between the working capital requirement or on the basis of time. And in this, the straight line, that is the straight line shown in the picture, shows the permanent working capital. That means that is intact. You are not going to make any changes in that. But the line which shows the ups and downs, that is related to the variable capital, because in variable capital, the requirement varies from time to time. Sometimes it goes down, and sometimes it shows peak. So this ups and downs shows the variable working capital requirement, and this straight line shows the permanent working capital. So permanent working capital is intact, and variable working capital goes on changing. So that is related to the nature of permanent and the temporary working capital. Now we are going to move further on significance of working capital. Now, what are the main significance of working capital? Why we are studying this working capital, and what are the benefits? What are the significance out of it? First one is importance of adequate working capital. Importance क्या है adequate working capital की? Actually, in financial management or in any business, we need to manage the funds in such a way that we are not having crisis, or we don't have idle funds in your business. Both the situations are very complicated, because if you are not able to manage the funds according to your need, that is also a complex problem. And if you are having idle funds in your business, that means you are not using your 100% capacity of your financial resources. So in that sense, we have to maintain adequate working capital. So first one is maintain solvency of business. How it can maintain the solvency of business? Actually, solvency refers to the ability of a business to pay out its obligation on time. And if you are able to manage your day-to-day expenses, that means you are able to generate the profit in long run, because you are managing each and everything properly. In that sense, we can say that adequate working capital, because you are investing adequate amount of funds in working capital, and you are having spare amount which you are spending in other business and other investment opportunities or other investment proposals. So in that way, you are going to maintain solvency of business with the help of adequate working capital. Next one is create and maintain goodwill. Actually, when the actually businesses, we are running business to fulfill the needs of the people, and if we are not able to provide the goods on time, for example, is their festive season and we are not able to provide the goods according to the requirement of the people, so in that way it will affect the goodwill of that particular company or organization. So if you want to maintain goodwill in the market, so you have to satisfy the customer, you have to provide the goods on regular basis, you have to um, keep in touch with the market changes, you have to make innovative and technical changes according to the requirement. So in this way, if you are able to maintain the working capital, you can create and maintain goodwill in these senses. Next one is easy loan. Easy loan means you don't have any problem in arranging the loans, and it is possible if you are running your business in a well efficient manner and you are having good image in the from in your finances, and you are able to maintain the goodwill according to the current situation. And in that way, if you are doing your work in a proper way, you are maintaining your business, you are getting the profit, and you're having good image in the mind of customers and in market. So there is no complexity to arrange the loan for your business, because each and everything is in your favor. Next one is regular supply of raw material. Actually, regular supply of raw material is must for the existence of any business, because you are providing very good quality product, but your supply is not regular. You are not satisfying the customers regularly. So there is no one who are waiting for a product. They are not waiting, because today is the era of competitive age. So the people are having so many options. And if you are not able to maintain your regularity, so the customers are not interested to purchase your product. So that's why you have to maintain proper supply of raw material, so that there must be proper production of goods, and you can supply the goods in the market on time according to the need of the customers. So in that case, adequate working capital play a very important role, because if you don't have enough working capital, you are not able to purchase the raw material on time, and if you don't have enough raw material, you are not able to convert it into the finished form, and it will directly hamper the need of the customers. Next is regular payment of expenses like salaries, wages, etc. Actually, when you are running business, it's your obligation or it's your responsibility that you have to bear the expenses like salaries, wages, and other expenses on time, because people are providing services. They are putting efforts, and if you are not giving the payment on time, so the people are not interested to complete their work with 100% efficiency. Next one is ability to face crisis. Now, how it generate the ability among the business if we are maintaining the adequate working capital? Actually, when we are having planning of each and everything, that how we are going to manage the assets, how we are going to pay the liabilities, so we are having enough funds. We are having enough funds to take decision in the situation of crisis, and at that time we can take intelligent decisions and we can face the situation. We can manage the situation for the benefit of the organization. We can exploit the situation which are against, because due to proper management we can make solutions out of it. Next one is quick and regular return in investment. Actually, when we are putting 100% effort for maintaining each and everything, for creating the goodwill in the market, for maintaining the solvency, for in making the supply of goods in the market on regular basis, that means we are trying to satisfy the customers. So in that way, if the customers are interested, if we are doing our business in a well manner, so the quick and regular return on investment is quite obvious, because people are interested to join with us, and people are going to rely on our business because we are doing our work in an efficient manner. That's why the adequate working capital is most for the existence or success of any business. Next is, in this slide, we are going to focus on what are the major factors. What are the factors that affect the working capital? So what are the factors which we have to keep on focusing? First one is nature and size of business. Actually, the need of working capital or the amount of working capital is directly influenced by the nature and size of business. If the nature of business is such that in which you need huge amount of working capital on daily basis, so you have to make arrangements according to that. And it also affected by the size of business. If you're running a small business, in that case your requirement is less. But if you are running a big business, in that case your requirement is totally influenced by the size of the business. And next one is production policy. Now, what is production policy? Production policy means how much time you will take to produce the goods. So that is your production policy, how you're going to manage the things. So you have to make arrangements of raw material and all the things related to that for that particular period of time. That's why production policy matters a lot. Next is credit policy, because I already discussed that there is a chain. There is a chain system. You are arranging the funds, you are producing the goods, you are supplying it to the market, and in reverse you are getting the amount, and you are further investing in the form of investment, in the form of purchasing the raw material. So if you are providing credit for long span of time, if you are providing credit for 2-3 months, in that case you have to arrange funds according to that period. You have to arrange funds for that 2-3 months, because your uh, circulation of money is going to be delayed due to this 2-3 months credit policy. So you have to decide the credit policy according to your business. If your business is just like that, you need more capital, working capital, so it is suggested that you must follow the credit policy, which is a short duration. Means short duration credit policy must be followed, because you are able to manage the things in a proper way. And if you are not going to manage it according to the nature of business, so you have to make arrangements for spare funds in order to keep your cycle going on. Next is manufacturing process. It also affect the requirement of working capital, because manufacturing process decide how much time you will take, how much expenses you have to bear. So that is directly influenced by the working capital. Next is terms of purchases. How we are going to purchase the raw material, how much discount your creditors are going to offer, how much time period they are giving to pay out the expenses. So that matters a lot, and that affect the working capital. Next is dividend policy of concern. It also affect directly, indirectly, the amount of working capital, because if you have to spare some amount of profit in the form of dividend, so you have to make arrangements according to that. You have to make your day-to-day transactions according, keeping in concern that you are having a fixed liability to pay the dividend according to the policy of the concern. You are not able to avoid that amount. So in that case, you have to focus, you have to decide according to that. So these are the major factors which affect the working capital. Next is how we are going to compute the working capital. Actually, the estimation of components of working capital method, in order to meet the daily requirements, we must estimate our current asset. If we want to analyze how much amount we need, so we have to analyze the current asset, and short-term obligations also, that is current liability for that particular period. And next one is percentage of sales method. That is very simple and common method. And according to this method, we have to use our past experience. We have to use our past experience related to sales and working capital requirement. And according to that, we decide how much working capital will be required to sell out that much particular amount of goods. So we have to determine it in percentage according to the sales. So this method expresses the relationship. Actually, it defines the relationship between the sales and the working capital. So it is directly influenced by the amount of sales. And next one is operating cycle. Now, what is this operating cycle? Actually, in simple sense, we can say that operating cycle is time duration and about the conversion of cash into cash equivalent. Means that is the time which you need to convert the raw material, work in progress, finished goods into cash. So that depends upon business to business. That operation cycle can be long for some business and it can be short for some other business. So it's totally affected by the nature of business. So if it can be estimated according to the business criteria and according to the nature. Now next we are going to move on next slide, that is related to the working capital cycle also. Working capital cycle or operating cycle is the time duration within which the net asset and current liabilities, net current asset and current liabilities converted into cash. As I already explained that it is a time frame within which you have to convert your asset and you have to convert your assets into finished form and you have to convert sell it out for the cash. So the operating process cycle consists of the following important stages. Actually, what does it compromise? Working capital cycle. And first, we have to focus on raw material and storage stage. And after that, we have to work on that raw material. And the second stage is work in progress stage. And when we put some expenses on raw material, it is converted into work in progress. And when we bear more expenses and work in progress and we convert the raw material into finished form, we will get the finished goods. And after getting the finished goods, we are going to sell it out to the debtors. And next stage is debtor collection stage. We have to collect the money from the debtors. And the last stage is creditors or payment period stage. In that case, we have to pay our creditors. So that is the operating cycle and different stages. And this is the diagram of operating cycle in which we are having cash, and by the cash we are going to purchase the raw material and production processes start. And after starting the production process, the raw material converted into work in progress, and it will convert into in the form of finished goods. And after getting the finished good, we are going to sell it out to the debtors. And after that, we have to collect the credit payment. And in the same sense, we are resuming the cycle again and again. Actually, working capital is affected by different approaches, and they suggest that how you're going to finance your current assets, how you're going to manage the funds, how you're going to finance your current assets and current liabilities, and how you're going to collect the source of finance. So in matching or hedging approach, this approach match asset and liability to maturities. We are going to match the assets and liabilities with the maturities. And basically, a company use long-term sources to finance fixed asset. And this approach suggests that you have to find out the sources you have to find out the permanent nature of sources for financing the fixed asset, because fixed asset you are having for the long period of time. So you have to search out the better option you have to search out is to finance that particular fixed asset from permanent nature financing sources. So short-term financing to finance temporary current assets and long-term financing for the fixed assets. So in example, if a fixed asset which is expected to have provide cash flow for 5 years should be financed by Xbox 5-year long-term debt. Means there is a proper management, because you are investing the money in the form of fixed asset for 5 years and you are securing the amount of finance with the help of long-term debt. So there is a better option. So assuming the company need to be additional inventories for 2 months, it will say short term. And if you require further inventory, so for that you are allowed it's better to choose short-term bank credits for financing the inventories. Next thing is matching or hedging approach. In this matching or hedging approach, it is clearly defined that you have to arrange the funds according to that. It is defined in this diagram. Conservative approach. The last one is conservative approach, is because the company prefer to have more cash on hand, and that is why fixed and part of current asset are financed by long-term or permanent funds. According to this approach, the conservative approach define that company prefer to have more cash on hand. Means company used to prefer कि उसके हाथ में ज़्यादा cash रहे, and that is why fixed and part of current assets are financed by long-term or permanent funds. जो फिक्स्ड और पार्ट होता है करंट एसेट का, वो फाइनेंस करते हैं लॉन्ग टर्म या परमानेंट फंड से. एंड एज परमानेंट और लॉन्ग टर्म सोर्सेज आर मोर एक्सपेंसिव, क्योंकि परमानेंट और लॉन्ग टर्म सोर्सेज ज्यादा एक्सपेंसिव होते हैं. इट लेड टू लोअर रिस्क, लोअर रिटर्न. So that is the concept of conservative approach. And in this diagram, it is totally defined that how the conservative approach works. And last one is aggressive approach. And this, as the name suggests, this approach is very aggressive. Means it's in this we have to take high risk. The company want to take high risk where short-term funds are used to a very high degree to finance current and even fixed assets. Means you are accepting high risk by arranging the fixed asset with the help of short-term funds. So in this case, this approach is regarded as aggressive approach, and through this diagram we can define it like that. And these are the different sources of working capital. We can arrange the funds from the working capital from public deposits, bank credit, trade credit, advances from customers, income from sales, self-financing, issue of shares, issue of debentures, cash credit, discounting of bills, packing credit, and commercial paper. So these are the common sources of working capital through which we are arranging the funds. So, and that and it depends upon the nature of business, that which source is best for the business, because there are so many sources of financing the working capital. So thank you. That is all about the working capital. We will discuss our next topic in our next lecture.